Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 7 Steps to Successfully Evaluate Field Service Technology. I'm Sarah Nicastro, Editor-in-Chief of Field Technologies, and I'll be moderating today's event. Before I finish the introduction and tell you a little bit about who you're going to be hearing from today, we'd like to ask you a quick question. You should see that popping up on your screen now. What we're looking for is just to get an idea of where everyone that's joining us today is at in terms of your field service technology evaluation process. So if you wouldn't mind, take a quick moment to respond to the question that is on your screen now, and we'll come back in a couple minutes to take a look at the results. So today we're talking about field service technology evaluation. That's what we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so discussing. You are going to be hearing from Randy Reynolds, who is the Vice President of Product Marketing at ServiceMax. And he's going to give you some advice because with today's technology landscape, you have more options than ever, which is a fantastic thing, but it can also cause a lot of stress when you're trying to determine what's best for you and all of the different considerations for evaluating those technologies. So Randy's going to give you some great advice today, and I think you'll find it very, very beneficial. After Randy gives you some information, we are going to have a Q&A session, so you'll have an opportunity to ask him any questions you would like. At the end of his presentation, you can feel free to submit them as we go along or submit them when we start the Q&A, whichever you prefer. And before I pass it along to Randy, let's take a look at the results of that poll we asked. So that should pop up on your screen here now. It looks like about 52% of you guys are in the discovery phase, 11% consideration, 26% evaluation, and 11% purchase. So that's very interesting data, and I will let Randy give you his thoughts on that. And I'll turn it over to him now. Randy?
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Okay,
You're welcome.
With that introduction in place, so yeah, this is Randy Reynolds at ServiceMax. So let me get started by thinking about how we went about preparing for this. So while I was kind of thinking about this whole topic, what I came to realize is that there's a lot of information available to prospective buyers of field service applications. There are 4-step programs and 9-step programs and top 10 lists and survival guides and lots of different things that are out there for you to look at. And I looked at all of them, or at least most of them. And yeah, I guess you could say I became addicted to buyer's guides, and perhaps you have done the same thing as well. So fear not, we're here to help you sort through all of these things, and so hopefully some of the information that we're going to be sharing will help you kind of streamline this process a little bit. So, what most people do when they want to find information is they go out and do a search on the internet. So I attempted to do a fairly intelligent search looking just for field service related buyer's guides, because I thought this might narrow down some of the results that I got. But as you can see here, Google found about 25,000 results on just field service buyer's guides. And so nobody really has time to sort through all of this information. So as I kind of looked through a lot of the information that was out there, what I started to see is there are some different themes that are pretty common across a lot of the different buyer's guides. And you can see these buyer's guides that are published by different experts in field service. A lot of vendors promote their field service solutions, create buyer's guides. And so when I started to look at some of the common themes, I thought that might kind of help set the context here. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to start with an assessment of where you are today. That seems to be a pretty consistent approach. Then you need to look at what your needs are based on where you are today, and not just what seems cool or sexy at the moment, but what is going to give you the biggest impact. Because remember, you're going to need to justify this investment with people who might be a little less enlightened on the impact that field service can make. And that's where you really need to get other people involved, both in field service but in other parts of your organization. And once you've done that, now you're ready to look at the solutions that are available and finally select a vendor. But it's important to point out that it really shouldn't end there. That evaluation process needs to continue at some level, not because you're evaluating different solutions, but you want to ensure that the solution that you've selected is delivering the results that you were expecting. So it is, to some extent, a continuous process. So if you're feeling like you're drowning in paperwork while you're dealing with increasingly complex service life cycles, you've got ambitious revenue models that are being thrown your way, and you've got all of these mobile solutions that people are asking you about, you're not alone. So how do you go about evaluating the best solutions for your business? Automating field service requires some important organizational changes that require really a thorough cross-functional evaluation. So if your service organization has not purchased software recently, or you could simply use some tips for navigating the buying process, this webinar is a great place to start. And we're going to discuss 7 steps to drive your research and evaluation of field service technology. And the best practices that we're going to be discussing here come from working with hundreds of successful buyers. So let's go ahead and get started. So step 1, as I mentioned earlier, is the self-assessment. So you need to be able to look at what you're doing today, because otherwise you won't necessarily know whether or not you've solved the problem that you intended to solve after you've done a lot of different research. So how do you go through that research process? So during your investigation, you need to take time to uncover all of the issues that are causing your organization to pursue making a change in the first place. Do you have a well-documented service delivery process? And if you could change something in your process, what would it be? Or do you want a software solution that can adapt to your processes that are already in place? And on that point, from our experience, most organizations want to avoid using technology to simply replicate a manual process. And so the introduction of technology becomes a great opportunity to really look at improving your overall process. And after you've examined your service organization, you really need to look at what your business goals are. What metrics do you want to hit? And is your company focused on improving customer satisfaction, or is it reducing service costs? Is that your main objective? It could be profitability. It could be other different business metrics. And you may face an uphill battle if you focus only on the needs and the goals of the field service team. You really need to translate the impact of a change to meet the needs of your business. And we suggest you look for benchmark data from firms like the Service Council in Aberdeen to help you establish some benchmarks of where you're performing relative to others. Capturing these metrics on how your organization is performing is a key step in the early stages of your evaluation. So in terms of metrics, here are some of the metrics that we've identified to help you truly understand where you are and where you want to be. We call these the universal 9. These are going to come in handy when you're looking for the funding to support some type of a field service solution. And this is not intended to be a comprehensive list of all of the key field service metrics, but based on our experience working with customers of different sizes and industries and geographies, it represents a pretty good starting point for the key metrics to manage your business. So with that in mind, I thought we could do another polling question here. And so since you can't see the list of 9 from the slide again, we've included them in the poll question. So how many of these metrics are currently being tracked within your organization? Are you guys looking at all of these already, most of them, a few of them, just 1 or 2, or none of them? So take a couple of minutes and look at the list of metrics that we've shown there and give us some sense of what metrics you guys are already capturing within your organizations. Okay, let's go ahead and see what the results look like. So it looks like, so the good news is nobody said that you're capturing none of them. So it looks like you're capturing a few of them, 40% one or two of them, close to the same a few, 13% most of them, and there are some superstars out there. 10% of you are capturing all of them or more. So that's fantastic. I think that will definitely be something that will help you during your evaluation. So with that, let's move into step 2. So the second step is to think through your internal processes and your key stakeholders. It's helpful to identify all of the key participants so you can kind of find out any potential roadblocks and the buying process that your organization is going to be going through. So one of the things that we like to recommend is the creation of an evaluation plan. And this is a plan that's intended to capture all the steps that you know you're going to need to go through with the stakeholders in your firm, and you can agree to them jointly with your preferred solution partner. So you can, and a lot of times you can kind of put the onus on the sales rep that you're working with, who can take ownership of this task, of keeping up with this task, but your participation is going to be key to this success. And once you're ready, leverage your solution partner for help in making some of the business case for the solutions you want to purchase. So if you need help putting together a document or a presentation, they may be able to provide you with the proof points that are required. And then we're going to talk about total cost of ownership and ROI in step 7. That's going to be a key part of this evaluation plan. But this is a good framework for you to get started, so you kind of know the process that you're going to be going through during the selection. Now, the other part of this step is to involve some of the key stakeholders who are going to be impacted by the technology decision. And so I've kind of listed out some of the key areas within your organization, and this is where you really want to get kind of a cross-functional viewpoint on things. Now, IT is listed first, and it's such an important group for you to work with. We've actually got that as a separate step in the evaluation process, so I'll cover that later. But you want to get some executive involvement. Having an executive sponsor can really help you tie your field service initiatives to business goals. They can also give you some guidance and help you out when it comes to getting this project approved. They can kind of talk you through the process. Obviously, the finance team is going to help you with budgeting. They're going to be able to give you project approval, and they're going to be very interested in the financial model that you put together, which we'll talk about later. Sales and marketing is also interesting groups that may be part of this. You wouldn't necessarily think that they would be part of a field service evaluation, but sales can really be a partner of yours in this process, because with better information on service history, service contracts, installed products, you can really impact upsell opportunities, and that's something that will get the attention of the sales organization, and it'll help you in your cost justification. Marketing even has a stake in this, because field service is often a source of competitive insights that can be captured during on-site service calls. And don't forget to involve the folks out in the field. Sure, this solution is going to help your dispatchers and your service managers, but you want to make sure that you're selecting something that the technicians will use. So be sure to involve them in the evaluation process. And then the extended service team is going to help with help review the proposed solution to make sure it's the right fit. Obviously, legal and procurement are going to be involved. Legal team needs to be able to review and execute contracts, and your procurement group wants to ensure that your buying process meets the business guidelines. So that's step 2. Build a plan and get the key stakeholders involved. Okay, so let's move on to step 3. So in this step, the next step is in evaluating this technology selection is to understand kind of what modern field service solutions are all about. So a lot of times other departments within your organization have brought in new technology and systems before, and a lot of times what we're seeing is that for field service, this might be the first time that you're doing this. And so once it's your turn to make this type of a decision, we want you to make the most of it by knowing kind of what the latest technology offers. So we're going to highlight a few of those areas. So modern field service tools really help you get a holistic view of the entire scope of field service management. Everything from connecting and automating things within your organization, from scheduling and work order management to contracts, entitlements, warranties, and all of the business analytics that go around that. You're also going to be able to benefit from connecting field service to other departments. We talked about sales and marketing, manufacturing, IT. This view across your organization can really empower you to transform your entire operation to deliver flawless field service, and that's going to help you get very happy customers. Now, one of the other attributes that we talk about in modern technology is the deployment approach, and more companies are seeing the value in cloud technology. In fact, the Service Council found that 84% of service executives have little or no reservation about using cloud-based offerings to run their field service operation. One of the great things about cloud-based solutions is that it gives you a more economical adoption model, a lot more simplicity, as well as the flexibility to support your specific business needs. So mobile is another really important area of a modern field service solution. There's been a rapid rise of tablets and smartphones, and service technicians need access to information on the go in a way that's simple to learn and easy to use. And so we've kind of identified 3 top things to look for with regard to mobile capability. The first one is that mobile apps need to provide a full range of functionality, even while offline for extended periods of time. So your techs can use them in virtually any work environment. So supporting the disconnected day, as we call it, is a key piece of functionality on mobile devices that you need to take a look at. In terms of the design for field service calendars, work order details, parts pricing lookups, integrated service reports with signature capture, and a lot more should be designed for mobile field service professionals. And everything in the design of the mobile application, from the layout on the screens to the entry fields to reference information, even the size of the touch zones, they need to be tailored to the needs of the field service worker. Field service mobile applications are not the same as a consumer application or a banking application. It really needs to be designed with the field service technician in mind. And then the last piece is the device-appropriate functionality. So device-specific design ensures that you're getting the most out of the device that you're using. So whether it's a tablet, a smartphone, or a laptop, each of these devices have different strengths and weaknesses. And those things need to be taken into account in the mobile app design. A one-size-fits-all approach is not always the best thing when you're looking for mobile applications within field service. Okay, so now that you've looked at your own business, the key stakeholders, and the types of solutions that you might need, it's time to get to know the solution providers that you're evaluating. Learning more about the company you'll partner with is critical to a successful outcome, because you don't want to think about this as a one-and-done relationship. The right solution provider will be your partner in moving you through the maturity stages of becoming a more modern field service organization. So here are some questions you should consider when evaluating potential technology providers. And these questions go beyond just the product to uncover more about the company that you're going to be partnering with for the long term. And so there are a lot of different questions here on this slide that you can take a look at, but let me kind of highlight a few that I think are really important to consider. You want to look at the amount of focus that the different companies have on field service processes and operations. A lot of software companies cover a lot of functional areas outside of just core field service. So be sure that you're working with someone who has deep domain knowledge in field service and really understands your business and its operations. And then Do they have customers in your industry who are referenceable? A lot of our customers found it extremely valuable to talk to some of our other customers to understand what their experiences were. So talking to other customers about their experience and their level of success is very critical to the evaluation process. And then another thing to point out is the vendor that you're working with, are they built to scale? And I mean this both from a business standpoint and from an applications platform standpoint. You're going to be investing your future needs as much as your current needs. So you want to be sure that you're picking a partner that can satisfy both what you need today and what you're going to need in the future. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, IT is a critical constituent to get involved in the selection process. So even if you're just choosing a cloud-based solution, IT will have questions that you'll need to be able to address. And it's always better to get them involved early in the process. So what I've done here is I've tried to highlight a few of the general types of questions that your IT department might want answers to. Now, clearly, the overall architecture is going to be among the first questions that IT asks. Is this going to be cloud-based, a SaaS model? Is it going to be on-premise? Is it going to be a combination of those things? Is it going to be a private cloud or public cloud? There are going to be questions about the mobile platforms. So you need to be thinking about those things and understanding if they have a point of view one way or another that will guide the evaluation that you're doing. Platform security is also kind of a big concern of the IT team. So whether the solution that you're looking at is going to be on-premise or hosted in the cloud, IT is going to want to understand the security that's been built into the platform. Do they have certifications? Do they have an audit record? Do they have a lot of experience in deploying a secure platform in other situations? And then finally, integration is always a hot topic that's going to come up with IT, because in almost every installation of field service solutions, there's some form of integration that's going to be required to some other system within your organization. And you want to make sure that the vendor that you're evaluating has a platform that's easily integrated with the other applications in your organization, whether that's your ERP system or whether that's your accounting system or other systems that you may have. So be thinking about those types of questions that the IT team is going to be interested in hearing about. Okay, so now we're on to step 6. So next, you need to evaluate the solution capabilities based on the needs you identified back in step 1 and 2. So this is where we get more into the very specifics of the capabilities within field service solutions. And again, as I've mentioned, you need to kind of look beyond what your immediate pain points are. You need to be sure that you're considering additional field service processes that you may want to streamline in the future. So in terms of the capabilities to look for, a modern field service software solution offers a wide array of capabilities that can automate the entire service delivery process. In order to impact some of the key measures of success, like revenue growth or reductions in warranty leakage, it's important to have the right tools for the right members of your team. And so here are some important capabilities that you might want to look for. Do you want to be able to support tracking of installed products, different versions and components of your installed products? Are there multiple options for technicians to do scheduling and to handle dispatch? Is there an ability to support various service contracts, complex entitlement schemes, and SLAs? So these are all of the things that you need to be thinking about in terms of the capabilities that you'll need within the solution based on what your current process is and where your key pain points are and the business goals that you've identified. So that's the selection process in terms of the solutions that are out there. Okay, so the last step in our guide is intended to give you the most insight into whether or not each solution makes fiscal sense for your business and provides the results you expect by evaluating the total cost of ownership and return on investment. So let's talk a little bit about some of the different financial approaches to justify this type of an investment. So, a typical starting point is with a traditional ROI. And, ROI models can be good, but they are sometimes a little bit limited in telling the entire story. ROI tools tend to be a little bit one-dimensional, and they don't necessarily take into account ongoing costs that are not typically tied to business impact. And another limitation is that many of these are either too simplified or overly complicated to address your specific needs. So keep that in mind when you're just looking at ROI. In terms of some of the metrics that you're going to need to build out an ROI, we talked a little bit about this earlier, and here's where you can kind of put some of these to good use. These are some of the metrics that when you're considering, when you're evaluating to determine your return on investment, these are the types of metrics that will be useful for you to input into that model. And your preferred solution partner can help you in calculating an ROI. In fact, ServiceMax, we have two different ROI calculators on our website. One is more geared towards small business, and one offers a little bit more complexity for medium-sized businesses. And we also have a capability within our services organization that can do a very customized, very detailed business analysis depending upon your specific needs. Okay, so the next level of financial justification is TCO, or total cost of ownership. And the thing that's nice about total cost of ownership versus ROI is that TCO accounts for the ongoing costs of the solution that are being evaluated. And it also includes the time value of money into the calculation. So when you're calculating total cost of ownership for a field service solution, it's important to remember the different departments that might benefit from this new application. Think about things like incremental upsell or cross-sell revenue that could be generated by having better installed product information. Think about the savings in marketing outreach programs by using your field technicians as a communication channel to your customers. You can include costs of purchasing and or maintaining hardware or software if this is something you're kind of comparing to an on-premise solution. And you want to look at the potential savings on replacing multiple systems with one new solution. And don't forget about the impact of doing nothing, because doing nothing certainly seems like an approach to save money, but if you're in a competitive services environment, this could be something where you're falling behind your competition by not taking any action. So keep that in mind when building out the TCO. And then probably the best approach to justify an investment is with a complete business case. And that includes some of the elements of both ROI and TCO. And a business case really helps you connect the dots from the current pain points through the outcome that you're expecting and the impact of your business. And so what I've done here is I've kind of given you a few best practices to think about when you're building out your business case. The first one is don't get so overly complex that you lose the message that you're trying to deliver. It's important to kind of keep this simple so that people understand what you're trying to accomplish and it looks very realistic and defensible. The other is to try to look at a payback period that's in 2 years or less. If you start to do a payback that extends further than 2 years, that's going to be a difficult thing for you to justify with your management team. Another thing is to be sure to link the business initiative like revenue growth or improved profitability to tie that to the objectives of the project. So I know that you may get very focused on improving some of those metrics that we talked about earlier that are very specific to field service, But I think in order to get this through your organizational review and approval process, it's really important to kind of say, what is the bottom line impact of on my business that is going to be affected by an investment in field service technology? And don't overlook the soft benefits like enhancing the work life of your employees or improving the ability to recruit new employees because you've got a slick new tablet application that your field service technicians are using. Those things matter, and those things are definitely something that we've heard from a lot of our customers have had an impact on the justification for their purchase. And finally, the last point is really worth emphasizing. Your goal should not be to just put an impressive number in front of your CFO, but it should be a starting point. It's a baseline from which you can monitor the results going forward. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this, this process doesn't necessarily end at the selection of a vendor. It's something that you want to continually look at and monitor to make sure that you're getting the most benefit from the solution that you've implemented. Okay, so there you have it. I saved you all kinds of time by not having to go through the buyer's guides and search the internet for all of this stuff. So those are the definitive 7 steps to evaluating field service technology. Now, keep in mind that as you embark on any evaluation process, don't be tempted to jump directly into vendor demos and evaluations. Be sure you understand your current process and where you can have the biggest impact in your business. Work on getting that buy-in throughout the process from your key stakeholders, and especially the IT team. And finally, build a business case that includes more than just a simple ROI. Those are some of the best things that I can suggest for you. So with that, I'll just say that the steps that you're taking to automate field service is a step in the right direction, and hopefully with this webinar, you can make the most of the opportunity to evaluate and select the field service management solution that's the best fit for your organization. So with that, I think we can kind of open it up to a few questions.
Yes, thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. So we have a couple questions here. To start, let's talk a little bit about services and implementation. So what should I expect in terms of time frame, time to implement a solution, and investment of time from the stakeholders within the organization?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question, and it's one of those that it will vary depending upon the type of organization that you have, both the size and the different types of solutions that you're implementing. Remember, we went over quite a number of field service processes that can be part of this solution. But I would say that as a reference point, we've seen implementation times that range anywhere from 6 weeks for some of our probably smaller business customers, up to 6 months for some of our large enterprise customers. But again, a lot of this is dictated by the amount of upfront work that you've done in terms of understanding your process, both the current process and the desired process that you want to implement with your solution partner. So a lot of times that's something that your organization can have an impact on. In terms of the investment of time from other people that are part of the evaluation process, again, that's going to depend a little bit. I think that one of the recommendations that we make is that if you kind of dive right into the selection process before you really kind of have a good understanding of what your field service process is, it's going to take you a fair amount of time because you're going to be getting a lot of questions from vendors saying, well, tell me how this works within your organization and how this process flows. And if you don't have a good handle on that, you're going to be spending time learning it on the first time as well as communicating it back to some of the vendors that you're working with. So my recommendation is that in order to minimize the amount of time, do some of this upfront work early on, and then it's a matter of just kind of keeping a regular cadence with some of the key stakeholders using that evaluation process that I talked about earlier.
All right, perfect. So the next question we have here is talking about, do you have any examples regarding a checklist of processes to evaluate? So the examples that you gave were good. This person is asking if you can provide any others or any additional details.
Yeah, in terms of the creating a checklist for the evaluation process, is that the question?
Right, processes to evaluate. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's something that that is something that we could definitely set up as part of this evaluation, where you can kind of go through all of the different business processes that you're using and make sure that you're covering each of them. It's something that we can demo that process. We kind of set up something like this when we do a lot of different trade shows and events, where we have a checklist of different processes that we can follow, and we can show you kind of how our product executes each of those things. So that is something that we can accommodate.
Okay, perfect. The next question is asking, what are the options for offline mobile capabilities?
There are a lot of different approaches to doing offline mobile. What we've seen is that there are solutions that kind of do a temporary caching of information so that you can support kind of a short duration of being offline. The approach that we have at ServiceMax that we clearly recommend is that we want to be able to support everything that is available on that mobile device that you can work in an offline mode. And the way we go about doing that is that there's a pretty substantial amount of information that we carry on the mobile device itself, so that when a technician goes out to do their different work orders and calls, we've loaded the necessary information to cover all of the work orders in their calendar on their device. So now, does that mean that we load the entire parts database necessarily onto the mobile device? No. What it means is we look at the work that the technician is going to be doing, and then that information that's related to their work orders, that information is provided on the mobile device. So they're not feeling a need or a lacking of information for anything that they're doing when they're on a job site, when they're offline. I think other solutions that you'll see is there's some amount of information that may be stored on the mobile device during an offline situation, but a lot of times your business process and your business rules and those types of things, you lose that until you're online again. And so what we're recommending is you don't want to have any kind of downtime. You want to make sure that you're doing whatever you can to improve that first-time fix rate. And so by providing as much information and as much functionality on the mobile device, even when you're offline, is the recommended approach.
Okay, perfect. Got it. Can you talk a little bit about, so there's a question here that's saying, can you provide a range of benchmarks or results that your customers have achieved as a result of implementing ServiceMax? So can you kind of speak to generally, the type of results that companies are achieving or can expect?
Yeah, actually, we did a survey of our customers last year because we were kind of curious about that as well, and we were really pleasantly surprised in some of the impact that we're seeing. I think a few that come to mind is our customers were seeing increased revenue growth of over 25%. They saw pretty substantial reductions in their costs associated with delivering some of their solutions. we actually have, I think that we have some of this information that is on our website that has a lot of the details of the metrics that you've seen. So I would recommend that if people go to our website, there's actually an infographic on our website on the resources page that go through all of the details associated with the impact that our customers have seen. So if you want to see some of that stuff, take a look at our website under the resources and infographics.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is asking, I'm not sure how much insight you'll have into this, but the question is asking, for an average field service organization that's evaluating different software technologies, how many vendors typically are evaluated before selecting, the ultimate solution?
It's an interesting question. I think that typically what we've seen is that people want to kind of keep it to they might talk to 3 or 4 and then whittle that down to a top 2 list, something like that. I mean, one of the things that we have found is that people use kind of publications such as Gartner is an industry analyst firm that produces a evaluation of field service management vendors, and they have a magic quadrant that kind of shows the leaders and the laggards in the space, and so it has a pretty detailed vendor evaluation. A lot of times people will use something like that to kind of look at, okay, so who are the top companies in this space? Let me just kind of bring in the top 3 or 4 and start from there. So that's probably what we see more often than in these situations.
Okay, perfect. Going back to the offline capabilities, there's a couple follow-up questions here. So I'm going to ask you both at the same time because they're kind of interrelated. So the first one says, when in the context of dispatching, does the download to the mobile device for offline access take place? Is it pushed to the device or pulled by the technician? And then the second part of that is there a limit to the offline content you can push for one technician visit?
Okay. So in terms of the...
Do you want me to repeat?
No, I think I got it. So in terms of syncing with dispatch, it's something that can be done both ways. If something is assigned by dispatch to a particular technician, that's going to show up when they are online, so they're connected. It's going to get pushed to that technician, so they'll see it on their device. But in the situation where they're offline, obviously they're not going to get any new tasks assigned to their calendar from the scheduler because they're not connected. So once they become back online, the technician has the ability to request a synchronization, and then that will bring in any of the new information that has occurred during the time that they were offline. So that's the first part of the question. And in terms of the limit on content, yes, there are limits. I don't have the specifics on that right now because we do support the ability to have attached documents, and we have document size limits, but those are kind of continuously going up as the capacity of the different devices that support our mobile applications go up. So I think that there are some practical limits. I mean, one good example of that is, if you're in an industry that has really extensive need for documentation, detailed documentation and manuals that you want your technicians to have access to. It's just not practical to put all of that information onto a tablet or smartphone, which is why we also have a kind of a mobile application that works on a laptop, which kind of sounds like a weird concept, but the idea is that our laptop application, because the laptop itself has a lot more storage capability, it's more suited for those organizations that have a very content-intensive requirement for their technicians versus some organizations that don't necessarily have those huge content requirements can get by just fine with a tablet or a smartphone.
Okay, great. So the next question is asking, can this system be configured to handle service vendors or subcontractors with appropriate permissions to limit their access to data? So talking about third-party workers.
Yes, yeah, and we do have a few customers that have configured things that way so that the permissions can be set up on the mobile device so that they only have access to those types of jobs that they've been assigned. So it can be permissioned so that third-party people can get access to the application as well.
I'm just curious, how much of that, or how much of a need for that, or a request for that, are you guys seeing right now?
It comes up from time to time. I don't see it as a real primary thing that we're seeing in the marketplace today, but it has come up, I think, even on other webinars that we've done where people have been asking about that. So there may be somewhat of a growing trend in people wanting to do that.
Yeah, okay. The next question is asking about cybersecurity. So it says, in relation to cybersecurity, some of our end users are reluctant about field service engineers connecting with their devices and connecting to their network. Is that something you can speak to at all?
I guess I'm partly the question that I'm having is when you say connect to their network, I'm going to assume that means connecting to the customer's network as opposed to just being connected to the internet. That is something that I've heard. We don't necessarily have the need to connect into any of our customers' networks that could potentially create a security issue there. So it's not necessarily something that we're having to get into a customer network.
Okay. Okay, good. So I think that's all the time that we have for today. We wanted to try and limit it to 45 minutes or so, and we've gone just a couple minutes over. Randy, I think you wanted to mention there's an event coming up here that ServiceMax is doing. So why don't you tell folks about that? That might be a great resource for some of the people that are currently evaluating solutions and taking a look.
Excellent. Thanks for reminding me of that, Sarah. So yes, next month we are holding our annual customer conference that we call Maximize, and the theme is Elevating Field Service. And this is an event that's open to both our customers as well as our prospective customers. And it's a really great opportunity if you're in the evaluation process to obviously come and just kind of learn about what's going on in the field service space. We're going to have a lot of great keynote speakers, a lot of great sessions. You will have an opportunity to kind of get some firsthand experience with some of the ServiceMax customers and what their experiences have been. So if you're able to attend, it's May 13th through 15th in San Francisco, and there's a link right here. If you go to just maximize.servicemax.com, you can see all of the details of what's going to be happening there. So yeah, definitely plan to check that out.
Wonderful. Perfect. So thank you so much, Randy, for sharing your insight with us, and thank you to everyone on the webinar that joined us today. We appreciate your time and hope you found the information very helpful, and hope everyone has a great afternoon.